The Oklahoma City Thunder are the current favorites for the 2025 NBA championship. Their regular season success has been undeniably dominant, but a lot of people are still very skeptical of this team and its viability under the scrutiny of postseason play. So in today's video, I want to talk about how likely it actually is that somebody will be able to stop the Thunder, what their weaknesses are, how certain matchups can exploit them, and what does it mean for the Thunder if they don't actually get it done this year. Hey everybody, Haircut Buckets here. Yes, it looks great. Thank you for saying that. I just wanted to pop in real quick to let you know that the newest deep dive over on the Deep Dive with Rusty Buckets channel is out now. It is about the conversation around free throw merchants and ethical hoopers and all of that. Obviously, that is tangentially related to this, as SGA is the primary subject of that video, but I would really appreciate it if you checked it out, put a lot of effort into it. Really think it's one of the tighter scripts that we've ever delivered, and it's an opinion that I'm very impassioned about. So go check that out. It'll be the top link in the description and the pinned comment. Thank you so much. Let's get on with talking about the Thunder. So first things first, I would just like to say up top, if you are not aware already, you probably are if you've been around here before, I am definitely a big OKC guy. I have believed in this team for a super long time, and I picked them as my championship favorite going into the year. So I'm definitely a believer and not that much of a skeptic. However, I am still trying to approach this video with that in mind, to just try and nitpick as much as I possibly can. If this Thunder team does end up losing, what will be the reason for it? But first, let's just quickly establish the scope of just how dominant OKC has actually been this year. At the time of recording, they have a record of 59-12, which puts them on pace for 65 plus wins. That has only happened 21 times throughout NBA history, and of those 21 teams, 16 of them ended up making it to the finals, and almost all of those 16 teams also won the championship. The ones that did miss it are known as some all-time blunders in the playoffs, like, for example, Dallas winning 67 games in 2007 and then losing to the Golden State Warriors in round one. I don't think the Thunder will do anything like that, but because they are in this class of team, it does mean a lot of expectations are associated with it. They have the best defense of all time relative to the league average and relative to who is second place. As of right now, they are 3 points in defensive rating ahead of the Orlando Magic, which is not that huge of a number, but it is a substantial difference. Usually the best defense in the league is something that is a revolving title that teams towards the bottom kind of pass back and forth. The Thunder have had the number one spot the entire year. They force 17.2 turnovers a game. They're first in steals at 10.5 per game and fourth in blocks at 5.8. On defense, there is only really one thing that they don't have on lock, which is that they don't have particularly tall and bulky wings. Their defense is primarily led by their perimeter defenders, who are almost all guards or 6'5" small forwards like Lou Dort and Aaron Wiggins. Not the tallest, not the longest. There definitely is enough guard defense there that I think they're still going to be great on the perimeter, but you could get matchups against like a LeBron or Tatum type of guy where he's going to have 4 or 5 inches on your best defensive option against them, which is Lou Dort. That's good. You know, he plays bigger than he is. He has longer arms. He's strong. Like, he can play bigger than his height is, but at the end of the day, height is a factor that they don't have necessarily in their favor. Chet Holmgren being here makes that dynamic a little bit different, because if they're running the double bigs, then Chet can be a help side guy, someone who you put on a non-shooter so he rotates and kind of roams around the floor however he likes. That would add another dynamic to their defense that would especially make up for their lack of height on the wings. As of right now, if they're doing primarily a center, they're not going to have the best size out there necessarily, but the double bigs option could very well end up cutting out this entire weakness from the equation. To that point, they just end up having a perfect defense. There are a lot of people who believe, a lot of the OKC doubters believe that Shea's free throw grifting is going to end up biting them in the postseason, because that's just going to disappear, and then suddenly there's going to be considerably less points on the board than there previously was. There's going to be defenders who are able to play SGA stronger than they have been previous, and that might actually be, to a degree, true, but the idea that refs biting their whistle in the playoffs would work against the Thunder more than it helps them is pretty ridiculous if you've actually watched the Thunder this year. They are a physical team. They are just a group of a bunch of defensive menaces who do stuff that can get called a lot, that if it isn't getting called because fouls have nuance to them and it's not that overt, if OKC is allowed to get away with fouls more, even if their opponent is able to get away with fouls more, it's not going to switch the favor away from OKC by any means. I think as much as it could hurt them offensively, that idea helps them defensively considerably more. And you know what? People are right. Refs do bite their whistle more in the postseason, as I think they should. But that does not mean that OKC is just going to disappear. You do not build a 65-win empire entirely on getting the ref to blow the whistle every time you stick your leg out. All right? It doesn't happen that way. It has never happened that way. And SGA's free throw volume is not all that high. But with that mentioned, with us moving on to the offensive end of the floor, let's talk about that. OKC has not been an all-time offense, but they are still a very, very, very good one. So when you pair that with the all-time defense, that's why they're so damn good. SGA is an all-time great shot creator and shot maker on the perimeter. A lot of people like to chalk his game up to just free throws, and that's a cute narrative on Twitter, but that's not going to change what actually matters on the basketball floor when the playoffs come around. SGA, when he takes 5 free throw attempts or less this season, which there's been 15 games where that has been the case for him, he still averages 29 points per game, 4 less than he does in the regular season right now. It is a dip. Oh no, my first option's only scoring just under 30 points per game. What are we gonna do? I really have zero concern for SGA in the playoffs, even if the whistle is a little bit harder to get. I am aware of the reality that he doesn't actually need it, and it is a reality, even if you don't believe it is. I don't care. My analysis is not going to be based on your dumb narrative. Free throws being taken out of the equation, SGA will still be fine because a majority of his free throws are legitimate ones that will continue to be called in the playoffs. They've made this same argument against James Harden in the past, and it made a little bit more sense with him because Harden shot like 3 to 4 more free throw attempts than current SGA is. More like 2 to 3, but either way, and his foul baiting was far more egregious, but either way, he averaged 1 less free throw in the playoffs than he did in the regular season as a Houston Rocket. It's not that big of a difference. It's not something that will determine success or failure unless you are already failing in other areas. One area that I do think they could see some failure in is in the secondary shot creation, because while SGA is as rock solid as I could realistically ask for, especially from a guard, J-Dub has dipped a lot this year as a shooter, and he had his struggles in round 2 against Dallas last year. His floaters this year and his long twos have both dipped by 5%, and his three-point percentage has dipped by 6.5%. He did not handle being a big-time creator very well in that Dallas series. He shot just 42% overall, and his points per game dipped by 2 per game despite an increase in minutes. Chet has shown a ton of signs as a shot creator, and signs doesn't even feel right. He's done enough that it's more than just signs. Chet, if you give him a mismatch, Chet, if you sag off of him too much, he'll hit you with a mid-range pull-up or a three-pointer. He hesitates on his jump shot to a degree that makes me feel like he just isn't as confident in it as I would like it to be. Part of it is that Chet has a slower release, but he can still get to the mid-range, he can still punish a mismatch, and like, he has a good handle, he can still get by slower-footed bigs, and then he's an excellent defensive player. But on the offensive end, I don't know that he's necessarily going to be reliable for a 20 bomb on a regular basis. Same can be said for J-Dub, whose scoring volume has increased this year, which is a part of the reason for the efficiency dip. You know, maybe his point per game average will be better than it was versus Dallas, but it'd be a lot better if he was doing it efficiently, and I'm afraid that maybe against truly great competition, he wouldn't be all that efficient. The shooting out of the role players and really just everybody other than Isaiah Joe, there really isn't a great three-point shooter on this team. We've seen a big increase from SGA, but I also don't really care that much about him as a three-point shooter. I think defenses will play him like that, but he's going to get his shots and stuff, as I mentioned. As I also mentioned, J-Dub has seen a decrease in his three-point percentage. Caruso and Cason Wallace are both at like 34, 35% this year, which is good-ish, and I think they have good forms. So they're probably not bad, but they are probably bad enough that defenses will sag off of them in the playoffs, and they will have to make them pay for that. Even Chet, who's at 38% this year, and Aaron Wiggins, who's at nearly 40, they last year in the playoffs shot, in the case of Chet, 22%, and in the case of Aaron, 28%. And again, this is with the defense just not super respecting them. Even Dort, I think, is a higher percentage guy than his actual ability. Now, he's been a high percentage guy for the last couple of years, so by no means do I think he's a guy you leave open strictly anymore. He shot 31% from three against Dallas, and he was getting left open a ton in that series, so is this yet another instance where Dort shoots 40% from three in the regular season, and then suddenly that three does not look nearly as good under the scrutiny of the playoffs? Very plausible. All of these guys suddenly just not being that good at three-point shooting, or collectively them just being kind of disappointing as a group of three-point shooters, that is a very real possibility, and to me, I think it is the largest concern they have. It's a big reason why I was a very vocal advocate of Cam Johnson being traded to the Thunder. Unfortunately, that did not happen. I think it would help them a lot, and if they do not end up winning a championship, wouldn't be shocked if that's the type of move that they go for, and that's the reason that they don't win that championship. OKC basically has two very good things to bank on, rely on, and say more or less this is going to show up when the playoffs are around, and that is their defense, and that is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I do not expect any kind of playoff dip from him. When he played against Dallas last year, he was the only player who was easily up to par for what they're expected of from the regular season. In fact, he actually shot the ball better than he did in the regular season while averaging over 30 points. Dallas did a great job of cutting him off from getting to the rim, but his mid-range jumper was automatic and he shot 50% from three. I'm just seriously not worried about Shai at all. He's not a free throw merchant. The defense is also just not going to disappear, so that's two pretty great, damn near guarantees to have. So the last thing really is just how much does experience end up mattering? That's the thing that everyone harps on, is that this is a young team, and that is indeed true. Last year's playoffs was the first playoffs for a lot of these guys. There was only one postseason where they played 10 games, and they did not play great against the Dallas Mavericks, so there is reason to highlight that, but I have always felt like experience is something that can just be a little bit overrated by people, because it is definitely something that is important, but like, the Milwaukee Bucks have experience out the ass right now. What fucking difference does that make? Experience is something that helps a lot when the difference between the two teams in the talent and the system and how good they are as a basketball team in the regular season, when those teams are close, then you can talk about experience being a factor. But when those teams are not close on paper at all and not close in practice in their regular season matchups, it's really hard to argue that experience is going to just be this overwhelming thing that makes OKC freeze like deers in headlights. It's just not going to happen. I really, really don't think it is going to. And the way that they played in the playoffs last year, it was their first time together as a core. So losing in the second round in a competitive series against a team that went on to make the NBA Finals, that's pretty good first out. This is their second out now. They've improved as a team. Their role player core has gotten dramatically better. I don't see any reason why experience should topple them. But there are two teams that have a very real shot of beating the Thunder. Two teams that, if anyone else beat them, I would be pretty surprised, though we will talk about a few other teams beyond them. But of course, I am talking about Boston and Cleveland. How could Boston beat OKC? What would be the reasons that they would beat OKC? Well, it's going to be winning the three-point battle, which, as I have highlighted here, that really should be no issue. There's far more actually just clearly, legitimately really good three-point shooters on the Boston Celtics. They shoot a way higher volume. No matter what, OKC versus Boston will have Boston winning the three-point battle. Having a healthy Porzingis, I think, is entirely crucial. I don't think you can win this series if he's not there, because I do think that OKC's double big lineups will be particularly effective here. They'll just actually be able to win the size battle, despite the fact that they do have the smaller wings. It's not going to matter because there's going to be two 7-footers on the floor at the same time without any consequence on either end of the floor. So you need to be able to have Porzingis and Al Horford healthy so that you can run double bigs to match their double bigs. I don't think this is going to be an instance where you run them off of the floor by playing smaller. You're going to need to be able to match it. OKC also does not have a great Tatum matchup, as I mentioned earlier, with just the height on the wing thing. Lou Dort usually gets the Jaylen Brown matchup, and he kind of makes life hell for him, so they might just stick with that because of how much he has taken him out of games at times. But I feel like Dort's your best matchup against Jason Tatum. After that, I feel like SGA is your next best matchup in terms of actually having the length. Actually, no, it's J-Dub. It's J-Dub. I don't know why I would say it's SGA, because I think J-Dub has a longer wingspan too. Yeah, J-Dub on Tatum is probably the move. Tatum has 3 or 4 inches. I think it's 3. I don't know. Is Jason Tatum 6'8" or 6'9" or 6'10"? I see him get listed at all of them. He's a good bit taller, so not the best matchup. A good one, but not the best. So if Tatum ended up having a series where he cooked a lot, it wouldn't shock me all that much. The positive end there is that Jason Tatum is the type of player who can just sometimes take himself out of games, so if he gives you a few of those, that will be all that you need. For Cleveland, they have the better double bigs. As of right now, Jared Allen's better than Hartenstein, and Evan Mobley is better than Chet. Now, a year or two from now, will Chet be better than Evan Mobley? I think that's very plausible. Will Hart and Allen be closer together in a couple of years? Maybe. But right now, going into this postseason, Evan Mobley has played like a borderline top 10 player in the NBA. And with that being the case, that's a much better player than Chet. Even if Chet is good and his place in the league is kind of up in the air just because we haven't seen him too much, even if on the high end of how good Chet actually is, I'm pretty sure that Evan Mobley's better right now. So they have the double big matchup in their favor. They're the only team in the league that can match the double bigs of OKC as effectively as they can. And they're also, again, going to win the three-point battle. Cleveland has been basically the best three-point shooting team in the NBA this year, and better than OKC. So, again, this one should be pretty easy, all things considered. The only hindrance to that, the only way they would lose a three-point battle is in the fact that their 6'1" tandem of guards are both the most high volume shooters, especially high volume pull-up shooters, and if they are having trouble on the perimeter, maybe the threes end up dipping a lot, because between the two of them, they take 15 3-pointers per game. So if they're having a rough time shooting, I don't know if anyone else can pick up the slack, especially with the double bigs. Evan Mobley's not going to start taking 8 threes a game on a 40% clip. They're less certain to win the three-point battle, as I feel like Boston is, but I'm still all but certain that they would. They will probably have to play a Okoro/DeAndre Hunter bigger minutes than they currently are, just because I don't think you want to go with Mitchell on SGA, to say the least. Dean Wade could also get a couple of those minutes, and I think he would do a serviceable enough job. I really don't love it for Cleveland because I think the double guards, the backcourt is just going to get destroyed by the endless tandem of perimeter defenders that are going to be thrown at them. There isn't going to be a guard on the floor that is even remotely easy to score on, other than Isaiah Isaiah Joe. That's it, man. Everybody else is like literally an A+, A- at the very least caliber defender. Can anybody in the West hang with them? I'm really skeptical, but if they were able to, here's what I've identified at least as what would probably be it. I have 4 teams that are worthy of consideration, and that is the Denver Nuggets, the Golden State Warriors, LA, and LA. For the Clippers, I don't really think they have a great matchup against Kawhi. I don't think Dort would give him too much trouble. I don't think J-Dub would give him too much trouble. You know, if you have an automatic Kawhi Leonard, I think you're just going to have to accept those buckets. Then, of course, James Harden has been playing damn near at a prime level lately, so if he was able to maintain that momentum into the postseason, that would be great. Maybe the postseason defense makes it much harder for him to actually put up the numbers that he has been. We will have to see. They also have far more scoring depth. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Zubats is like an 18-point-per-game scorer the last couple of months, so maybe he keeps that up. Norm Powell is a 24-ish point-per-game scorer. Bogdanovich has been a 12 to 15-point-per-game guy off of their bench since he's been suiting up for them. They have a lot of guys. They literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys who can give you 20 points on any given night. And I don't really think that OKC has that. I would say that OKC has 3 guys who you could rely on to give you 20 on any given night. And really, I'd say more like 2. And even then, there's only 1 player who I'm like certain is going to get 20. They have that going for them. That said, I don't think it's going to be enough. For the Lakers, they really don't have a good matchup for both LeBron and Luka. It would probably be J-Dub and Lou Dort, and as I have mentioned, the height difference is there. It's not a significant enough thing that I think it's going to break the defense by any means, but it does mean that it will not be as effective as it otherwise is. LA's defense has been good enough since Luka's been there that I think they could somewhat hang with OKC, at least well enough to balance the scales a little bit and have everything just come down to the offense. And if that's the case, well, LA has the better depth of scoring. They have a crazy leap, a crazy edge in the playmaking department, which they have a crazy edge in the playmaking department against everybody. But OKC is also not a particularly strong playmaking team. It's not a weakness, but it's not one of their it's not one of their powers, And they also have 2 superstars instead of 1. So if LA could actually be comparable defensively to OKC and then it just be relied on Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves as a big 3, all 3 of them can get 20 and 7. Luka can get 35. Maybe if Luka really gets closer to just full shape just in time for the playoffs, I think LA does have the right ability to hit at the right time, but still, obviously, as I mentioned, I just don't see it. Then we go up to Golden State. Steph is still a bad man. I think people are not factoring in the fact that he's kind of been playing top 5 ever since Jimmy Butler's been there. Jimmy Butler will have to elevate into postseason form, like 22 plus point per game territory, in order for him to bring enough to the table to actually overwhelm OKC. And if you got 30 point per game Jimmy Butler for a whole playoff series, or 26, 8, and 8 Jimmy Butler, and then you got 30 plus point per game Steph. Having all of that together, you would then also probably get close enough to very good and comparable on both ends of the floor. And then we can talk about an experience difference, but we are banking on a lot more ifs here than you would like to in terms of predicting a series. So again, nah. How could the Denver Nuggets hurt them? Well, Jokic is the best player in the world, and he is unstoppable. I do think OKC's double bigs could hurt him a little bit, but I've started to feel like Aaron Gordon has genuinely improved enough as a three-point shooter that defenses will start to respect him. He is shooting in the mid-40s from 3 right now on a higher volume than he has at any other stage in his career. So if the 3 is real, it makes the double bigs of the Timberwolves last year not as effective as it would be. Then again, you could argue that Hart is a better defender than Cat, so that would maybe make the difference in the one-on-one matchup, and then Chet has more speed to roam around, so they might actually be able to execute it better as a team, but I also think Jokic and the Nuggets will be more prepared for it and less likely to be so bothered for it. and Aaron Gordon will not be as easy to leave wide open. But with that said, everybody besides for Jokic has to be on their A game. When we watched them win the championship in 2023, they did that by everybody being on their fucking A game. Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., KCP were all excellent pretty much the whole way through. I think Michael Porter had like a stretch of some ugly shooting, but then he followed it with a stretch of some excellent shooting. So you need everybody to be locked in, especially this year because the competition's a lot harder than it was in 2023. I think the way that Christian Brown has played this year kind of gives them an extra flair beyond KCP, but it also reduces their three-point ability, even if he has, been okay. He's primarily an attack off of the catch, running to the rim type of guy. And OKC, being that they have the double bigs, they might be able to protect the paint enough that the fact that the Nuggets are not a very good three-point shooting team will fuck them up. I kind of think this is a terrible matchup for Denver, though, because Jamal Murray, if I had to guess, will probably be in a straitjacket, and beyond that, you don't have a lot of shot creation, so gonna go no on that one again. I'm still very high on OKC going into the postseason. I'm sure that surprises no one after this point, but no championship. None of them are guaranteed. The East has two very strong opponents. Whoever they get is going to be a tough matchup. Whoever they get, I think, will push them to at least 5 competitive games, probably 6, and it's very likely and plausible that 7 would happen. So no title guaranteed. By no means are the Thunder guaranteed to win this title. I don't think I would ever say that a team is guaranteed to win a title. I watched a team win 73 games and then lose in the championship. So never gonna say no one else can do it, but man, do I think OKC's got it as much as I possibly could before reaching a degree of hyperbole. Now last, what if they do lose? How much of a failure is this? How much in the scope of this season, the scope of the rebuild over the last couple of years, and the scope of the careers of the core players here, how much does this end up mattering? Not a lot. There will be a lot of slander, there will be a lot of criticism, and there will be a prolonged inauguration into getting SGA into the all-time great conversation, because this is just how we as NBA fans work. We're not going to say you're an all-time great player until you win that championship, but Nikola Jokic was an all-time great player before he won a championship in 2023, and so is SGA now. Even if he doesn't win it this year, it won't mean he's not that, but you won't get it being a mainstream opinion until they actually reach the promised land. It will hurt. It will be bad. There will be a lot of criticism that comes of it, but it doesn't have to be something that crumbles them. A lot of people have compared them to the 2012 OKC Thunder, who beat a far more experienced Western Conference, but lost in the championship because there was just a way better team waiting for them. I don't think there's a way better team waiting for them this time around. Boston or Cleveland, I think they will more likely than not win that series. But even if they do lose, the way the Thunder fumbled it last time doesn't necessarily have to happen this time. It doesn't. It might. It might be unavoidable, but I think they will be right back in the finals again. If they lose to a team that they are heavily favored against in the Western Conference, that might look a little uglier. That might be, maybe we should have a conversation about the core players on this team beyond your 3. And that's the only thing that I would say about the Thunder is just like, I wish there was a little bit more diversity in the archetypes of players they have. You have your shot maker, SGA. J-Dub more or less operates similar in terms of his shot creation in the half court. There's not a lot of contrast in how they make the defense play them between your 2 best scorers. And then Chet out there, again, is just a little bit of like, how quickly is he actually going to cross this being a 20-point per game scorer threshold? I wouldn't do anything panicky off of a loss, but there would be conversations that could eventually compound on themselves to actually being action if they were to lose again. But I don't think it's going to happen. I buy into the OKC Thunder a lot. I picked the Celtics to win the 2024 championship going into the playoffs. I picked the Denver Nuggets. Did I pick the Denver Nuggets going in? I think it was after round 1. I was like, the Denver Nuggets are going all the way. So I've had a decent track record in these predictions recently. Not historically, but recently. I hope that I am not fucking things up for you Thunder fans, because you deserve it. Thunder fans have been going through trauma for the last decade. Like, it's one thing just to never have a chance. It's another to have a million chances and still not get it. That hurts more. So yeah, I really hope that they can finally make it happen this year. But that is it. Goodbye.